This month, true crime takes center stage as Madison Opera presents the world premiere of Everlasting Fate by Madison composer Scott Gendel. Based on the true story of the 1897 Greenbrier ghost, Everlasting Fate is a ghost story, a thrilling drama, and an all-American opera. Don't miss your chance to see it on February 13th and 15th in the Capitol Theater. Tickets at madisonopera.org. Want to win the Madison Summer Camp Rush? Behold Wonder Palette Camp. The local creative art camp in Middleton at Sauk Trail Elementary is open for registration. Campers ages 6 to 12 will find an energetic and supportive environment to explore their creative passions. They offer 4 separate weeks of camp, each unique, and each week has 4 days of fun in the culinary arts, arts and crafts, theater, and dance. Register today at wonderpaletecamp.com. This is CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Today, it's the Friday News Roundup. Public health emergencies, data center proposal updates, and our state's version of C-SPAN is back. Lots to talk about. Joining me to talk about it all is our executive producer, Haley Sperling. Hey, Haley.
Hi, Bianca. Nice shirt.
Thanks. Yes, we're both wearing red plaid. Incredible. And we're here with our newsletter editor, Rob Thomas, too. Hey, Rob.
Hey, I'm feeling left out. I'm wearing a boring blue shirt.
Yeah, what's that about, man?
Nobody called me. You guys got to call me next time. We're going to do a themed show.
Yeah. Honestly, it's like there are probably so many people in Madison right now wearing a plaid red shirt. But something that's maybe more important to pay attention to is our first story here. Haley, you've got it over at UW.
Yeah, we've got a story at UW. UW-Madison officials sent out an email to the campus community earlier this week after a student was confirmed to have a case of the measles. Not good. It's been reported that the student allegedly contracted the illness during international travel, so this isn't necessarily tied to other cases that have been confirmed in the state. But it still got a lot of folks worried because measles is extremely contagious. In a statement, the director of public health, Madison and Dane County, Janelle Heinrich, said that the virus can linger in the air for up to 2 hours after a person with measles has left the space. So that's a big, big yikes when it comes to public health. And this also means that the students' locations can help us sort of identify exposure, which has been really critical. So public health has identified some areas of interest, and we'll put a link to this in our show notes because there's a lot of information and like specific timing. But some of these locations include Madison Metro Lines, Unity Point Health Meritor Hospital Emergency Department, the Psychology Building, the Wiseman Center, the Genetics Building / Biotech Center, Union South, and the Qdoba on Park Street, RIP. So like I said, the dates and times of these exposures vary. So like I said, check out the link in our show notes for the full details. The dates of these exposures range from January 25th to the 31st. So measles, yeah. What do you guys know about measles? And it's okay to say nothing, because honestly, I didn't know much before looking into this story.
I think we know the important parts, which is terribly contagious. We've also been living for the past 25 years under the premise that it's been eradicated, according to the CDC, and seeing it back is incredibly bad news.
I was surprised how serious it can get. I did not, I guess because it was eradicated, I didn't realize how bad measles can get.
Yeah, it can be really bad, particularly for folks who are immunocompromised or for folks who are too young to get the vaccine. So typically, kids get vaccinated for measles before going into school. It's that MMR, measles, mumps, rubella vaccination. So here are some quick facts and symptoms to watch out for when it comes to measles. it's been on the rise for the past few years, and 2025 actually marked the highest level of infection since the illness was declared eliminated in the US back in 2000, like you mentioned, Bianca. And, as I mentioned earlier, it's extremely contagious, and symptoms can actually take a few days to appear. Initial symptoms include high fever, cough, runny nose, and watery eyes, and then it's followed by this like full body rash, which is really not good. If you think you're sick with measles, don't go anywhere. Like, don't go to the doctor. Call your doctor as soon as you possibly can, because you do not want to risk further spreading this disease. And like I mentioned, measles has been spreading in the US for a while now. In South Carolina, there have been at least 876 cases confirmed in a recent outbreak, which NPR says is the biggest outbreak we have seen in decades. And last year, Texas had an outbreak over on the west side of the state that hospitalized around 100 people. So like you mentioned, Rob, this is serious, right? It's not anything to mess around with. Thankfully, there are signs that we're headed in the right direction when it comes to controlling the spread of measles, and that's due in large part to vaccination. Wisconsin really needs to step it up when it comes to its vaccination efforts if it wants to prevent a potential outbreak here too, because I don't want to say that's on the horizon, but our vaccination rates are not good. Last year, WPR reported that Wisconsin kids have the second lowest measles vaccination rate in the nation. Only Alaska was lower. So bad news, Wisconsin. Come on, y'all. There are far fewer kids who are now vaccinated against measles than they were in 2013. And to put some numbers into context here, the CDC recommends a 95% community vaccination rate to prevent measles outbreaks, which is really high because, like we said, it's so contagious. And so my question to you, I love playing numbers games. If you guys had to take a guess, Rob hates this.
I do too, for the record.
If you had to take a guess, knowing that 84.8% of Wisconsin kindergartners had both doses in the 2023-2024 school year, what do you think that percentage is in Dane County? We'll just go higher or lower. If you
I was
to.
told there'd be no math. I'm sorry. I would got to be higher. Please tell me it's higher.
I mean, that's what you'd think, but I hate being pessimistic. And I think a lot of Wisconsinites, why we're in that number 2 slot, or at least as of last year, is because there are a lot of people that feel like the government shouldn't tell you what to do. And this falls into that. So I'm not going to guess, but you can like math games, Haley.
All right. When it comes to the percent of 5 and 6-year-olds with 2 or more doses of the MMR vaccine, which is what we need for that full vaccination, in 2023, that percentage in Dane County was 76%. So not what we want to see. With that, though, I will say we do have some good news. The Madison Metropolitan School District is actually hosting a free MMR vaccine clinic with Public Health Madison and Dane County on Saturday in response to this recent exposure. So that clinic will take place from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. this Saturday at the Holtzman Learning Center. There will also be vaccines available for the flu, pertussis, HPV, hepatitis, polio, and chickenpox. So get a whole buffet of vaccines while you're at it.
Well, Haley, that's very important news. That is why we came to it up top. Thank you for bringing that. We've got more news to get into, but before we do, let's take a quick break. Looking for a bucket list winter experience? Head to the Frozen Assets Run, Walk, and Festival. The event runs from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday, February 7th, and brings true winter fun to the Edgewater and frozen Lake Mendota. The celebration is a free, family-friendly, accessible winter extravaganza with fun on the ice, inside the Edgewater Hotel, and outside on the plaza. Plus, thanks to an accessible ramp from the pier to the ice, more people can take part in the magic of being out on the frozen lake. You can also join the Frozen Assets Run Walk. It's one of the only races in the world held entirely on a frozen lake. Proceeds from the Run Walk support Clean Lakes Alliance's work to protect and restore our lakes and inspire community stewardship. New this year, participants get a Frozen Assets stocking cap while supplies last. I heard they're really cute. Learn more and register today at cleanlakesalliance.org/frozen-assets. That's cleanlakesalliance.org/frozen-assets. All right, we're back. And man, we have been talking about data centers a lot, and there is news in that realm. The $12 billion, 1,600-acre data center proposal for our neighboring DeForest by QTS is now dead in the water. Last week, the Village of DeForest board voted unanimously 7-0 to reject a key aspect of that project moving forward, the annexation of land from their neighboring town of Vienna to make the center. The company QTS responded by backing down entirely from the proposal, saying now's not the right time. This is after months of village meetings over the proposal and its potential environmental impacts, and months of fierce pushback from a lot of local residents. Y'all, what do you think about this development? It seems like the people's voice of opposition won out.
I think it's exciting that, one of the main reasons that they cited that this proposal's dead was because of public sentiment. And that's huge. There's been so much pushback that folks they don't want this here. And I'm glad that officials are listening.
It does feel like the public is kind of starting to get its footing about these data centers. They were coming so fast and making so many promises. And I think it's kind of heartening, depending how you feel about data centers, but it's heartening that people could organize and, make their voices heard. And I guess staff eventually said it wasn't feasible. So you could sort of feel the tide turning in this debate over the last few weeks.
Yeah, democracy is alive and well, or so it seems. I think it does feel like a win. Cap Times reporter Olivia Herkin put out a piece covering the village's decision that the center's just no longer going to work for them. And she got quotes from the village administrator on the board's choice. And they said, the reason for killing the project in part included the public pushback and engagement. And also citing a January 9th report from the Wisconsin Department of Administration that said QTS's annexation to DeForest was, quote, not in the public's interest, bringing up concerns about whether the village could adequately provide water and sewer services to the area. So this is a big figure. The center was expected to need 125,000 plus gallons of water daily. And that was nearly 15% of the village's current supply. And plus, there'll be cooling needs. Isn't that wild?
I can't even conceptualize that. That is nuts, considering that's 15% of the village's current supply. That's wild.
When you said that it was dead in the water, the first thing I thought of was, well, that's a lot of water that's not going to be used by the data center, right?
True.
I almost said pun intended. I left it out, but it was definitely intentional.
Always looking for those puns. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, water was a huge part of this. And, I'll say not everyone was against the project. Obviously, there was lots of voices that were, but it's a complicated decision. I saw the Chamber of Commerce president tell WMTV's 15, quote, the project could have had the potential to double the village's tax revenue. And they also talked about the fact that the DeForest School District has been struggling to fund the district on a regular basis. So people need money, but how they're going to get it, that's a big question. I do want to shout out that I recently spoke with City Alder Derek Field on this podcast about the Madison Common Council's vote to unanimously place a 1-year moratorium on granting data land use permits. That was a great conversation. I recommend, if you didn't listen, going back. And similar to some of the folks calling out the data center in DeForest, there's a call to just slow down the process. And it was really informative. So go listen to that. And I also saw reported in a few places that QTS is not done in the region. They said it will continue its $1.5 million partnership with UW-Madison to advance research into responsible data center development. So yeah, QTS isn't gone from the area. And if folks remember, UW-Madison has really put a major emphasis on wanting to become part of the AI revolution, and specifically how to have humane innovations around AI and data centers. So that'll be really interesting. And we'll continue to watch that and the developments there. And I should say as well that a lot of people have strong feelings. You listening might be one of them. There's a rally on February 12th at 12 p.m. at the Madison State Capitol, specifically a statewide data center Day of Action rally. And the quote, all out to the state capitol. So as Madison and Wisconsin does, people are continuing to share their, feelings and activate their First Amendment rights and just say, hey, a lot of people don't want data centers, but if they are going to be done, we want them done in a way that actually benefits us.
I think this is such a strong story that highlights community in a really interesting way that you wouldn't necessarily think community when it comes to data centers. But here you have the village of DeForest, the people rallying to make their voices heard. And it's really encouraging. And it also does give me a little bit of hope too, thinking back to your conversation with Alderfield, Bianca, just that Madison, they're not saying no to data centers, but they really are trying to tread lightly and be thoughtful and considerate about how they go about any sort of developments if and when they come down the line, because it really is a win.
And going back to your comment, the person saying that, well, we need to adequately fund schools, like that's not the residents' fault that the government isn't adequately funding its schools, and they shouldn't have that hammer over their head to allow a data center just so their schools have enough teachers. And, that's a systemic problem. And, a shiny new development, I think, is a temporary fix to that.
And I also we're not stupid, right? I think that a lot of people here are like, okay, you want to come in, this huge company from Virginia, and make tons of money, and it really has to benefit us in a real way. And if there are environmental impacts, that is something we have to take into account and take really seriously. One of the taglines from the statewide data center Day of Action is America's Dairyland, not Dataland. So we know a lot of people are fired up. We'll continue to talk about this subject, and we've got more news to get into right around the state capitol. So stick with us. And before we do dive into any more news, let's take a quick break. All right, we're back, and so is something big at the state capitol. Rob, you've got the story.
That's right. The Wisconsin legislature's in full swing right now, and WisconsinEye is back to document it, which was not the case for the last 7 weeks. I'm sure you guys know what WisconsinEye is, but just to back up a little bit, it's been called basically Wisconsin C-SPAN. Cable junkies might know C-SPAN is the national channel that broadcast live like congressional hearings, press conferences, and other doings from Washington, D.C. WisconsinEye was launched in 2007 as a nonprofit, and it's actually the only state-level broadcast site in the country like this that broadcasts legislative hearings and press conferences and things like that going at the Capitol, and relies on private donations to keep it going. In addition to live streaming, they have at this point something like 30,000 hours of archived content on its website. So like if you're interested in what's happening in the Capitol, if you want to know what's going on with data centers or vaccinations, if you're in a particular issue, or you just want to keep tabs on what your local legislator up to, it's pretty invaluable. And we're really lucky, I think, in Wisconsin to be the only state to have something like that. Are you guys WisconsinEye junkies, either as journalists or just as people? Do you watch what's going on?
I've certainly been the beneficiary of their coverage and like having to go find out, okay, what happened in this hearing? Or, I've used WisconsinEye a lot, and I'll die on this hill. I'm C-SPAN for life, baby. If I had more time, if I had multiple lives to live, I would just watch C-SPAN interviews. Like, I think this stuff is so important.
I love WisconsinEye. They were a huge help for me when I was a WisPolitics intern way back in the day. And it makes sense that Wisconsin is home to a great organization like this. We were the birthplace of public radio. We believe in that strong First Amendment rights. We believe in transparency here. So shout out to WisconsinEye. It is so important.
Yeah. Bianca must have been so excited when C-SPAN 2 launched. And you had to choose which one to watch.
I mean, I invited you to the party.
That's right.
There was a celebration.
But so for WisconsinEye has had some funding issues lately. CEO John Henke said that the organization needed $887,000 in funding he said this last November, to operate in 2026. So they had a fundraising campaign, but it fell like well short of its goals. I think the GoFundMe has currently raised $56,000. And Hinkey's made good on his promise. On December 15th, WisconsinEye not only stopped live streaming, but they took down that 30,000 hours of archived content. So for the last 7 weeks, we really haven't been able to see what's been going on at the Capitol. And in fact, Republicans enforced rules that prevented non-credentialed media from recording meetings and hearings on their phone. So it really did go dark.
Wow.
Yeah. But WisconsinEye seems to be the one thing left that can bring left and right together in divided Wisconsin. Wisconsin Public Radio reported that on Monday, a joint legislative committee approved $50,000 in funding to keep the lights on and the cameras running at WisconsinEye at least through the end of February. And I can personally confirm that it's back on the air. Earlier this morning, I was watching the Assembly Committee on Housing and Real Estate, and let me tell you, it was riveting television.
I mean, there's not a bigger topic than housing.
Oh, yeah, right. So it's good to see the cameras back on. The issue, of course, is $50,000 is not the same as $887,000. And the question is what happens when that short-term fix runs out. Right now, the legislature is looking at ways to find long-term solutions to WisconsinEye's funding woes. The governor and the legislature put a provision in the most recent budget that would have given WisconsinEye $10 million if the organization could have matched that amount in private donations, but they fell well short, obviously. So the next idea that's being proposed, and again, by both Democrats and Republicans, is to create an endowment fund for WisconsinEye. Assembly Minority Leader Greta Neubauer and Assembly Speaker Robin Voss brought up that idea last month. And the idea would be that it would be the endowment would bring in $600,000 each year. And then WisconsinEye could make up the remaining probably $350,000 in private donations. And WisconsinEye seems good with this idea that if you have that endowment fund, that might be the incentive to bring in donations to kind of bring it over the top. So I don't know. What do you think? I mean, there's been other ideas about like, well, maybe the government should maybe do their own network. But I don't know. I think WisconsinEye is pretty special. And just the fact that like Democrats and Republicans are both saying, yes, we want those cameras on. We want people around Wisconsin to see what we're doing, I think says a lot.
I'm kind of shocked that we aren't paying for it in full. I know that money we have limits on everything, but Wisconsin being called sometimes the cradle of democracy, that we care so much about democracy, access to public information, both sides coming together and saying, oh, shoot, this thing we've been mooching off of this whole time, like our staffers, I'm sure use, like this is a resource that everyone, particularly in government, particularly in journalism, like all of these major forces need WisconsinEye. So I'm heartened that they're trying to get it together.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're thinking long term here. Like you mentioned, the endowment, Rob. I think that is a really good idea here. I would be very wary to turn full funding or like full power of WisconsinEye over to the government. I think that kind of defeats the purpose, right? Having an independent watcher. And that's so critical, like you said, Bianca, to so many different people, not just journalists, but the people in the Capitol, the people who are key players who are making moves in our state. I'm also just thinking about like this year and last year, everyone's got funding issues. It's like, did we just hit a wall financially? I'm thinking the city of Madison, Dane County, all of their contracts that are coming up and like, we need more money. WisconsinEye is like, hey, guess what? We have no money. And I'm like, was this not an issue 4 years ago? Could we not have planned ahead a little bit? I don't know.
But I think you're right, Bianca. There's so many stakeholders around Wisconsin, whether you're a legislative staffer or you're a journalistic outlet or you're a lobbyist trying to track a bill. Like it's probably a service that really pays for itself. So I would hope that they would step up and contribute.
Not me out here believing too much in government. Haley, that's the whole point, is that it's independent. But I'm also like, here we are. This is excellent news. And while we're in the moment and joy of excellent news and trying to find funding for this very important resource, should we turn to our member shout outs? Because we've got a number of them with people shouting out good things in Madison.
Yeah, we love shout outs. Let's do it. I've got the first one. This is from Shauna K, who wants to shout out Tea Cider. She said, quote, want to get more into tea drinking? They're the place to go. They give excellent recommendations and the store has super cozy vibes.
Love Tea Cider, love the owners there. And it's also a good place to get gifts for other people. I've gotten a number of bags of tea and they're doing it the right way. And they also do tea tastings and teachings. There's a lot happening at Tea Cider. So thank you, Shauna K, for writing in with that. Another person, Eli W, shouts out Atlas Improv. I took an intro to improv class when I first moved to Madison and was the best way to meet new people. I can attest. I recently took an intro to improv class at Atlas Improv, and I feel like family with that group. I mean, you truly put yourself out there and you bond very quickly.
That's really cool. Kind of similarly, Anna L is shouting out Three Treasures Martial Arts. She says, more than martial arts, this local school built strength, confidence, and a supportive community you'll actually want to join. Have either of you studied martial arts? I don't think I've ever asked that before.
If you count my dad teaching us kung fu growing up, then yes.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did the crane and we watched a lot of kung fu movies. I know that's kind of out there, but yeah, that was my training. And then also both Haley, you and I went to the underground self-defense for some self-defense training, and they have martial arts as a part of that.
Yeah, they have their own specific kind of martial arts that they teach. I never got into those classes. It felt like a step above where I was willing to go, but I always kind of toyed with the idea because I was like, this could be fun. But yeah, I did kickboxing for several years because feels good to hit stuff every now and then.
Yeah, that rubber dummy, kicking them in the face. It's really a feeling everyone should have. Good. So shouting out from Anna at Three Treasures Martial Arts. We'll definitely have to check that out. I really do and have wanted to go and actually learn Kung Fu to the extent that I have time. We'll see. So love hearing those shout outs from all y'all. And this is just one of the perks you get from being a CityCast Madison neighbor. And in addition to those shout outs, you get to support our team of local journalists right here in Madison. If you value what we do or just a free press in general, as we've been talking about, independent, sign up to become a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. And look, something big is happening this weekend. Rob.
That's right. Sunday is Super Bowl 60. And of course, we're your top sports podcast.
Yeah.
Who's excited to see the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks play? Okay, who's excited to see Bad Bunny play, right?
Yeah, there we are.
That's good. And the commercials and all the rest of it. I wrote a guide in the Madison Minutes newsletter to shout out some of the special events that bars or restaurants are doing around town to kind of make the day special, like drink specials and all kinds of stuff like that. But the big one I'm interested in is actually before the game even starts. Now, have you guys watched the Animal Planet Puppy Bowl?
Yes.
I've seen clips.
I mean, yeah, you kind of get the gist of it. It's like a bunch of puppies rolling around and a commentator pretending they're playing a game. But it's really, really cute. And while we don't have any Madisonians playing in the Super Bowl, we do have a couple of local heroes in the Puppy Bowl. Anson and Avro are two Madison-based rescue pups that were at Underdog Pet Rescue and they found good homes for. They are totally freaking adorable, and they were part of the 100 puppies in the Puppy Bowl this year.
There's 100 puppies.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to sub puppies in and out.
They get sleepy.
Sometimes they get sleepy. Sometimes they get thirsty. So you got to keep rotating them in and out, I think.
This is some of the best news of the week. I'm so glad to hear. Also, I love the name Avro. Anson and Avro. They've got the A thing going on. That's adorable.
They're really sweet. Yeah. So you can actually meet Anson and Avro and get your picture taken with them. Underdogs, they got this great location on Stone Road, and they're going to have a Puppy Bowl watch party on Sunday starting at 12:30, so it'll wind up before the Super Bowl. You can meet the puppies, you can get brats and beer, and they'll have plenty of adoptable animals there. So maybe you'll bring home your own MVP.
Oh Lord, don't tempt me with that, Rob. My house
That's how I have 2 dogs, because we went to Underdog and we're like, let's just look at the puppies. We don't have to take one. And then
You have to take one.
Cut to 1 and then 2 eventually. So, yeah.
That is such a good pastime. If you have self-control, I suppose. Yeah. Don't get too crazy.
We did not. Yeah.
Well, in puppies we trust, y'all. And while this weekend might mark the end of football season, we've just started Best of Madison season. Nominations are now open for the Madison Magazine 2026 awards. You can vote once per day in each category per valid email address, and we would be honored if you nominated CityCast Madison in the local podcast and local news website categories. We've brought home the gold in the podcast category 3 years in a row now. Can you help us make it 4? We will put that link for the voting in our show notes. Please help us out. We love you guys. Show us some love, right?
Best of Madison, 4 in a row.
Was a 4P thing?
Something. It's got to be.
Okay.
I was a quad something.
Yeah. Strength, quads, quad win. Anywho, go to our show notes for a link. Y'all, that is the Friday News Roundup. Thanks for rounding up the news with me this week. Haley Sperling, we should go to that puppy bowl and get a puppy.
See you later.
Rob Thomas, thanks so much. Puppies for life.
I gotta go walk my dogs.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm your host, Bianca Martin. We're produced by Jade Isiri Ramos with help this week by Elizabeth Kama and Laura Sutsui. Haley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Additional music this week by the Wisconsin Opera, Wendy Marchini, courtesy of Epidemic Sound, and DM from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. Rob Thomas is our newsletter editor. Don't forget, you can always get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And hey, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone you're watching the football game with? Make it a party. Get some local news. Get informed. Alrighty, see y'all back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Until then, thanks for listening and have a wonderful weekend.